Welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio with your host, K. William Spencer. This program is geared to help you see what thoughts and or beliefs are holding you back from being your best for yourself and those around you. Your life is only as good as your thoughts. For more information, visit our website at www.ytyrradio.tk. That's www.ytyrradio.tk. Now, here's your host. Hi, and welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. This is K. William Spencer, as always, your host. Today, my guest is Pat Kammer. She is the author of a book called Love's Voice Changes You. Love's Voice Changes You. She has more books coming out as well. She's also a hypnotherapist, I'm going to put it that way. And she has a lot of great information that she's going to share with us today. And as you know, we talk about what she is doing now. And at the break of the show, halfway through, take a commercial break, and then we're going to do the Slingshot Effect, and then Pat's going to tell us about life before what she's doing now and how she made the transition. To give you a little idea, she grew up as in a fundamentalist home and was continually searching for perfection until one day she just understood that it's not about perfection, it's about something else. So Pat, you there?
I'm here.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with your book and tell us about what's it all about and what your future books are about?
Well, Love's Voice, the voice, is the voice of spirit that I hear, and it teaches people better ways of looking at life. It did me. And it came in a time when I was having a rough time in my life. My husband was dying. I suddenly had to take the reins where he had total control. I had to make the decisions of what to do financially to get out of our home that was a great big old Victoria home. We were living in it for 46 years, and I knew we couldn't stay there any longer because he couldn't make the stairs anymore. So I called out for help, and the help was this voice that's always in all of us, but we all seem to ignore that voice within us. Well, at least I did. And sometimes it comes through differently for different people. So, and if it comes through sounding like your own voice, so you don't recognize that it's the voice of spirit. So anyway, I called out. I said, I need help here. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn. I don't have the money. I don't have the wherewithal to do anything because I've never had the reins to do any of it. So Spirit says, what do you want? Well, I said, I don't know what I want. Well, let's start there. What don't you want? Well, I said, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this big old house. So I said, and Spirit just said, well, leave it to me. We'll work it out one step at a time. So I was taught and shown, and I listened day after day, one step at a time. I found out what I didn't like in a place to be. I still didn't have the money. And I was told who to contact. And little by little, I got control, if you will, of finances and had the money, and I was shown where I was supposed to be. And I'm living in bliss right now. I live in a wonderful condo home. And my husband now has passed. I was shown how to easily and effortlessly make the transition to where I am, and also to plan his funeral in a way that was pleasing to him, the way he wanted it. And everything went along so smoothly, it's incredible. There is no, well, I always say a rose doesn't grunt to grow. If you just allow and the Spirit to work through you, it's just amazing how it happens. It just is so smooth. And so that was how the book came during the time when he was ill in 2000. end of 2009 and into 2010, I started writing what Spirit was telling me, and it became what was known as Pat's Patters, just because it went with my name.
Mm-hmm.
And the word patter comes from hypnosis term, which is their hypnosis script, so they call it patter. So I thought, hey, that's a quirky name that kind of fit with my name, and I sent these little messages out with a page or maybe 2 pages to my online friends, and the online friends grew and grew and grew. They all kept saying, well, when are you going to put these in a book, because they're life-changing. Thus the title, Love's Voice, changes you, because it really does change you. It changes the way you think about yourself, about the world around you, and about everything, about your situations in your home, in your job. It's where the rubber hits the road. It shows you the how-tos. And one lady that bought my book was so intrigued by it that she bought 20 copies to give away. I thought that was quite great. Yeah, I thought that was a great endorsement. So anyway, they've been out since 2012, the end of 2012. So it's fairly new. And it is changing lives.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I'm listening to you talking about this, and as we spoke about even off air, when you get me smiling, it's that resonance that's going on inside me, and I'm just going, yeah. For those who I don't know who is actually listening, this is the idea of radio, is the fact that if you doubt that anything that what she's saying is true, let me give you a quickie little story of my own, and I'm going to let Pat continue on here. Several years ago, well, this is roughly 15 years ago, give or take, I was working in an international company, and I was field manager, and I was actually transferred over to training supervisor. So I answered directly to the regional vice president, and because I was in training supervisor, I also had to answer to the human resources, the head of human resources for our division at that time. And that's only because I had to do background checks and other stuff along that line for training purposes, make sure we got the right people. And one day, third day into this job, we all came into work a little bit earlier. I was working with another guy, and I worked with a woman who worked in the office. She was in her, say, somewhere around 26, 27 years old. Very nice girl. And she was very conscientious about her work. This guy came in, and we always joked about it. We don't know whether or not he just had a problem with his wife or girlfriend, whatever he was living with at the time, the night before, but he just came in with a bad attitude. And he came in and he started chewing on her in his office. She came out and she went to her office, and she did something she has never done before, which is she closed her office door and locked it. She didn't make a noise. She didn't make a sound. She would only close her door partially when there was too many people in the office, applicants or employees, whatever, and they were talking, and she had to be on the phone, so she would close it partially just to keep the sound down, but she was always available to people. She went in there, and she's crying. Well, at least we assumed it anyway. And next person in, me. And he started chewing on me, and I'm not that kind of a person where you just make me buckle. So he says, well, how come you're not doing this, that, and another? I said, I always want to say his name, but I won't say it. I said, look, I've only been in this job for 3 days. I put up 3 fingers. I said, not 3 months, not 3 weeks, not 3 years. I still have this huge learning curve that I'm on right now. 3 days in, I'm still learning it. So I'm doing the best that I can with what I've got. And he said, well, yeah, you got a point there. Okay, just get it done. So he was just whatever. So I left, and the next person he did it to was the other guy in the office. He took it fairly well. He kind of disappeared for a while afterward, but the girl and I were just, well, she was crying, I was upset. Cutting the story a little short, I had to deliver something to my boss, his secretary. So I walked out in the hallway. This is about 2 hours later, and I'm going, okay, I just said it, God. He's got to go. I don't care how you do it. He's got to go because he did something to other people. It wasn't just me. In other words, if it's just me, I don't worry about it. Okay, fine. I can deal with my own thing, my own way, and be just fine with it. But I said, he has offended other people that have done nothing to him. So he's got to go somehow, some way. And all I heard is kind of a loud voice. It said, we can do that, but you have to start it. And I said, I can do that. So I dropped off my stuff at the president's secretary, and his office was right next door. His door was open, and he was sitting there working on his laptop, the big boxy ones that we had about 15 years ago. And I just went into his office, and I called him by his first name, which I always did, and he was turned sideways, typing away. And I said, what are you doing for lunch? He says, nothing. He didn't even look up. He knows my voice. He says, why? I said, I'm taking you to lunch, my treat. And he just went, okay, still didn't look up.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, let me finish what I'm doing. I'll be about 10 minutes. Where do I find you? I said, either in my office or down in the break room. Well, I had finished what I had to do in my office. I went back to my office, and I just sat there, and I said, okay, what do I need to do? Still being upset and whatnot. I said, well, let me go downstairs and take a break. So I went down there, and there's the girl. She's sitting in the break room, and her arms are crossed across her chest. She's got a cigarette in the hand, and she's holding it up just close to her forehead, kind of that way. And she's just kind of staring off into the distance. She's not knowing what to do. And I said, what's the matter? She goes, I said, you still angry? She says, yeah, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, I'm going to be talking to the boss. She said, really? I said, yeah, because it's not something that's cool. It's not something that we should have to deal with. Really? What are you going to tell me? I said, well, don't worry about it. I'll tell you about it later. Just as I did that, he comes down and he says, you ready? He's 6'6", so he's standing in a double-wide door with his hands on the top of the door frame, looking normal. Mm-hmm. So we went off to lunch, and we did it Southern style, talk about anything that's just nice and whatever. And this is when I lived in Chicago, and we're talking about, I was trying to convince him to let us to wear dress shirts with short sleeves because, in Chicago, even like where you are in Ontario, you get up around 95 degrees and you got this high humidity. It's like, oh, this is unbearable, even in an air conditioning building. And so he laughs after we finish and we get into dessert, and he goes, okay, I know you did bring me over here to talk about shirts, so what's up? So I said, okay. So I told him what was going on. I told him what had happened that morning, not only with me, but with everybody else. And then I told him some other things that very few people knew, because one of the account managers came over to me and says, hey, did you know that he's been doing this, that, and another? And it's just shock and horror. So I told him about it, and I told him who I got the information from. So at first he just kind of seemed like he wasn't really that interested. Okay, fine. And on the way back, we talked and laughed and went back, and I just said, well, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I did my part. So got back to my office, and I went, okay. Talking to Spirit again, I just went, okay, I did my part, so now it's up to you. 5 minutes later, here's the vice president at my door knocking, and he says, I can't let what you told me go. I have to investigate it. Is it okay with you? And I had this look on my face like, what do you think I took you to lunch for? That was my look. I didn't say that. And I went, sure, of course. Yeah, do you want me to tell anybody that you're coming? He said, no, I can handle it from here. I just wanted your permission. And I'm thinking to myself, why do you need to ask my permission to check into this? Knock yourself out. So he started his investigation in it. And that was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just 2 hours later, the corporate head of human resources came over, and he started an investigation on it. The very next day at 10 a.m., 26 hours after he had actually started this mess, he was fired.
Mm.
So, what I'm just saying is, when Pat is talking about when you ask Spirit or you ask God, whatever you prefer to call this being that is better than, or that is our Creator, no matter what you want to call him, you ask him in sincerity, you'll get an answer. You just have to be prepared to listen to it. As Pat said, that voice, even to take it from a Christian perspective, speaks in a still, small voice. Very quietly. Doesn't intrude in your life. But I'm starting to preach here, so let me get back to Pat. Pat, continue.
Well, in this situation, Spirit would say it has to be, the solving of any problem has to be a win-win situation. So you probably did this person, this man, a favor, because it sounded like he wasn't loving his job, and he needed to move on. And you just give him the power to do so, the boot, if you will. And that's sometimes what has to happen to get us to be where we're supposed to be. It's not like he was a bad person.
No,
he was in a bad space for him. And he really didn't like what he was doing.
Yeah,
and he was taking it out on everybody around him. Now, to go a little further, you were the recipient, the victims, if you will, of this insane person. You were on a learning curve. All of you are learning to cope with these people that come along, and I feel like everyone are spiritual beings, even though they may not know that they are a spiritual being. And they are God incarnate, incognito. They are not flesh and bone, but spiritual beings, and they're here to teach us. It's quite wonderful to be able to get along with people who are pleasant and wonderful. We really need them. I mean, God help us. If we had these insane individuals in our life all the time to knock us around, that wouldn't be any fun at all. We had really nice people like you around in between times.
Oh, well, thank you.
But I really believe that it's the ones that are button pushers in our life that teach us the most. They're the ones who help us to become who we are, to be more powerful and stronger than we've ever been. And they are the ones to be given thanks for, not to be think, oh, you son of a gun, What did you do that for? I have a saying is, people don't do it to you, they do it for you. And so in return, you did it for him. You got him out of a rut. He was probably in a terrible rut and not happy where he is, and you just give him the energy, if you will, to pull out of it and go to a better place.
Yeah, this is what we call hard lessons to learn.
Yeah, and in the same token, you both learned. You learned to overcome, and you learned to pay attention to Spirit and follow directions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You've been doing that for a long time, I hear.
Yeah. And just like I said, I only do that when. Normally, I only do it when it affects other people other than just me.
You only do it when you're called to.
Yeah.
That was a calling.
Yeah. Yeah, you can put it that way. I won't argue with that one bit. But I always just say it for my own way of just saying it is. I usually try to do this when there is somebody else that's involved in the situation other than me. Because for me, I can just as easily just get up and walk away if it's possible to do so, which so far it's been easy in my life. Just, okay, enough of this, time to go. And my parents and other people that I've known in my life, I have always asked, well, how do you do that? And they go, the world is a big place. And as I started even telling people recently, I said, with a world full of 7 billion people in it, if somebody ends up being toxic in my life, I get rid of the toxic person and just find somebody that's, well, in this case, like you, who's just very nice, very loving person who has nothing but the best intent for everybody that she meets.
Well, I try to be that kind of person. That's why I went through what I went through.
Yeah.
To get where I am.
Indeed. And that's part of the second half of the show. We get into that. But let's get back to what else are you doing? Or do you want to tell us about your hypnotherapy? Or
Well,
The show is about you, so you tell us what you want to tell us.
I call it trance therapy. I'm running a certification course, Kammer Trance Therapy, because it's a light trance. People get really uptight about the word hypnosis.
Yeah.
I say hypnosis is not what you think. They're used to seeing these people on stage that are quacking like a duck and barking like a dog, and that's scary for the normal, everyday person. That it takes a particular person who is willing to go that route in order to entertain other people on stage. But as you notice, the hypnotist will go up on stage and pick a few people out of their chairs and send them down to the audience because they're not the type of persons that's willing to play the game. So it's something that you lend yourself to.
Mm-hmm.
What you do in hypnotherapy is you go into a slight trance where you're able to relax enough to get to the subconscious mind. In essence, you're doing that every day of your life. People say, oh no, you can't hypnotize me. Well, I say, guess what? When you're watching television or a movie and you get drawn into the drama or the horror or the whatever it is you're watching and you react to it by crying, laughing, or being scared, you're hypnotized.
Mm-hmm.
And even during that time, you're able to answer the phone, answer somebody across the room who asked you a question. You're able to do and be anything you want to be in the moment, and you're still hypnotized. You can go back right into the movie in a split second. So you're not out of control, and you're not asleep. In other words, you're so aware of what's happening. But with me, as the trance therapist, I can lead you into places where your mind will actually, I'm just sort of the conduit or the vessel, if you will, get you to go to a relaxed state. And then I kind of lead you along, and your mind is the one that does the work. It's you that does the work, not me.
Yeah.
And it's quite phenomenal what happens. I'll tell you one that happened that just blew my mind because I never had this happen before. This person, I didn't know her. Most of the people I do, I know them a bit. I didn't know this person. She was a total stranger. We did the session, and then in the middle of the session, she started to shake like a leaf, just tremble all over. And she said, I'm in a car with my boyfriend, and somebody's trying to pry open the car door, and he's got a mask on. And she was shaking and how frightened she was. She was really scared. She's right into it. Anyway, she says, my boyfriend's on the ground. I'm being hit over the head. I was killed. I'm killed. I'm dead. I'm thinking, you mean you're on the other side? She said, yes. I said, did you come back? She said, yes. And I thought, well, how can that be, But anyway, I didn't realize that she had regressed into another lifetime. After the whole thing was over with, we addressed the situation, eliminated the fear with the tools that I use, and at the end, all she could do was say, wow, she couldn't get any more words out. It just amazed her. Mm-hmm. And then when she simmered down long enough to tell me what happened, she said, my cousin was killed. She was kidnapped and killed 4 years before I was born. They never found her body. And I now know that the masked man was my uncle, her father. And in this lifetime, I am my cousin. That's why she was living it. That's why her life has been so messed up, because of this situation. And I said, why would your father kill you? And she said, because it was an honor killing. Apparently, I don't know if he was the wrong culture, wrong skin color, wrong religion, or what it was, but that was, in essence, what it was, an honor killing. And I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. There's something that... Oh, yeah. No, I won't get into what I was experiencing when I was doing holistic therapies. I've already told that story before, but I'll tell you off air if you're interested. Yeah, yeah, go ahead. I'm not laughing at it. It's just I'm still at that point of resonance. It's just a wonderful thing to hear these things, because I don't know if people know this, but when something inside of you resonates, you hear somebody talking about something that makes you smile, but you don't exactly know why, is because something inside of you is just going, yes, that is true, and it's something that, even if you just look at it from a spiritual point of view, is your spirit can relate to it.
Yeah, exactly. And this girl, she couldn't stop talking about it all afternoon to her other friend that was here. And, it just overwhelmed her so much, and it released her in a big way from all the stuff she'd been carrying around and didn't know what was wrong with her.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to be seen and to experienced once you... Actually, I'll say it the way I think you and I actually spoke about it before we got on the air, was becoming that partnership with our creator, excuse me.
Yeah, yeah.
And understanding that for most people, it seems like we always have that feeling of detachment. It's like, God is there and we are here. We're not a part of Him. We're just a creation of His. Well, if God is energy, just like as I explain it oftentimes, energy is not something that you can create or destroy. It exists, period. We can manipulate it to a certain degree. And I always say, now doesn't that sound like God? Just put some consciousness behind it, and that's what you can call it. So we're all connected.
Well, the law of physics says energy has no beginning, no end.
Yeah.
Well, if that doesn't describe God, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
It's a circle.
Yeah.
If you think everything is a circle,
Mm-hmm.
everything is a circle.
Yeah, and matter of fact, if you look it up now, you can find that there are a group of scientists, I won't say, I don't say how many, because I don't know how many, but there are scientists now that are actually trying to understand what is consciousness, because now they understand energy, but energy, they say, is just kind of dormant unless it has something to make it do something. And as being a Qigong master, which I am, this is what we do with Qigong. This is what people do with Reiki. It is that manipulation of the energy that makes the energy work. Otherwise, it just sits there kind of statically.
Well, in contrary, I think everything is moving constantly. The only thing that's constant is our source, who is the source of the energy. Mm-hmm. The energy is always moving.
Yeah.
Think about it. And the energy becomes a vibration, and your consciousness, the way you think, is what drives that vibration. So if you're in a fear vibration, you're going to send out fear. You're going to get it back from you. So there is no good, bad, right, wrong. Vibration doesn't understand that language. Mm-hmm. It understands the vibration of love only. And it responds to that. So people will say to themselves, well, how come Joe Blow has all this money and I'm a really good person and I have nothing? I'm struggling to make ends meet. It's because of the brainwashing and the input that we've had since we were children about what money is. Money is nothing but energy, the same as energy that water is. Water is energy, and you have no problem accepting water and all kinds of it as much as you need of it, whenever you need it. Well, that's the way money is. Money comes the same way. It comes through an energy of love. When if you have a hate on it, if you have a thing, well, only the poor are, worthy, or they have a badge of honor if you're poor, and the rich have to be crooked, and only you can't get into the kingdom of heaven if you're rich, and all this stuff that we've been taught. The root of all evil is money, and you have all this in your consciousness, and so people have kept it at arm's length. Not only that, they have a ceiling for it. They won't allow only a certain amount in. They can take 500, but not 100,000. That type of thing. So money is unlimited because it's a resource from spirit. And until we get out of this brainwashing that we've had and this programming and start to think differently about the energy that we're just talking about, we'll keep attracting what we focus on. We'll keep attracting over and over again that which we believe until we change our belief.
Very true. Very true. Pat, we're going to take a little commercial break here. and I hope all the listeners will stay put. We have an interview going on with Pat Kammer, the author of Love's Voices Changes You, and we'll be right back after the break, and she'll start telling us about that slingshot effect, about where she was and how she went through that transition. Please stay tuned.
I love what Maya Angelou had to say about the power of the spoken words. She said, I quote, "Words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning," end quote. And that is the reason I made the decision to put my words into an audiobook. So please check out my spoken words in my new audiobook, Your Life, Your Way. The 10 must-have goals to improve your life. It's now available. You can either go to my website at www.coachingbyria.com and purchase it there. You can also download the book from iTunes by going to the link I provided in the show page, or simply go to the iTunes stores and put my name in the search, Coach Ria Wilkie, and you will be able to download the audiobook from there. And I do thank you all for doing so. And if you like to write a review, please do so. And I'm always grateful to be in service. Thank you.
And welcome back. This is K. William Spencer, Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Today, as we've introduced her before, Pat Kammer from Ontario, book author, what was that other, trance therapist, there you go.
Yeah.
And what she was talking about just before the break. And now that we're back from the break, let's do the slingshot effect. If you're old enough to know the difference, there has always been transitions in everybody's life, including yours. And that's including mine, that's including Pat's. And Pat's here to tell us about her transition. She's going to go back as far as is comfortable for her and tell us about what her life was before and then how it ended up trance
therapy.
Yeah. Well, no, trance therapy is what you do. No, transition from what you were to what you are now. And even as we grow older, we're still learning, so there's still that transition. But in this part, we only have a half an hour. The big transition, or the big transitions, plural, if there's more than one, to that got you to where you are now.
Well, it started really young. I think my purpose here is to be a spiritual teacher, if you will, of other people. So I started real young. I was about 12 when my parents weren't particularly religious. Good people, middle class people, and wonderful, wouldn't do any harm to anybody. And anyway, her mother was pretty, devout Christian, I guess, went to church and played the organ, all the rest of it. So she must have got the Bible from her mother. But anyway, I was leafing through this Bible, and it had colored pictures in them. Because I'm an artist, I was really interested in pictures. And being young, I saw the one picture of people walking around in the middle of a fire. And somehow I got it in my mind that was hell. If hell's a place, I was just, a fear just raged in my heart. I wanted to avoid hell at all costs. And so it became my mission to escape hell. And it's pretty well impossible, because the minute you decide you're going to be a good person, whatever that is, because it's measurable by degrees on one side of the scale to the other, and I would decide I was going to be the best person ever, and I'd fall on my face the first hour, and it become almost impossible. So anyway, it didn't stop me from searching. I became really interested after I got married in the fundamental religion, and I was in that for 25 years. What that did for me was it caused, my experience was I was very judgmental of other people, and I was always trying to get to be better and put myself on a pedestal, if you will. I didn't know that's what I was doing. But, you can fall pretty hard if you're up on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I was always trying to attain the Jesus factor. I was always wanting to be, what we were told, be like Jesus. At the same token, you were told that the kingdom of God is within you. It's not outside of you. Jesus would always say, get up off your knees and don't worship me. And greater things shall you do than I do. And I am in you, you are in me. I am the tree, you're the branches. And on and on. And I don't know, I didn't get the message because I was so brainwashed to thinking that Jesus is so far beyond me. When Spirit is telling me, Jesus is like you. Jesus never meant to be an idol for anybody. He came back, he is here, was here to show you how to do it, how to be in this world with bliss and peace. And, yeah, just like Jesus, there were some people who got it. More people did get it than didn't because they loved him and adored him. But then there's that segment of society that wanted to kill him. But you can't kill energy, and that's what Jesus is. So Jesus is one because we're energy. We're not flesh and bone because we've got him tacked on a cross. He isn't. He's spirit. He's spiritual being, not this flesh and blood. Like life is just so like a blip on your radar screen. It's an illusion, if you will. But he is like we are. And so our answer to who we are, and I found out as I transitioned, as you say, I learned through A Course in Miracles that I am not what I thought I was. I had to undo a lot of my thinking about who I am. And when I did that, I realized that everybody is in the same boat that I am. I am no different than anyone. So thus the message become, we are one. That is the new gospel. We are one. The perfection of all of us is inside of us. It's not outside of us. It's never been outside of us. It's always been in us. Just like the Wizard of Oz, it's in you, my dear. It's been there all along. And we missed the message because our focus was on the wrong place. And it should be inside of you to realize that you are perfect as God made you. It's like peeling the onion. You may not be living in that perfection, but you're getting there pretty quickly. But realize, just like Jesus, there are going to be people looking on that don't understand it and are going to think you're one great big fat ego when that's not true. You are just finding who you are. And because I can say that with sincerity because it's happened to me. As soon as you don't believe in this third dimension anymore and you're going through the fourth dimension of possibilities into portals of the fifth dimension, you start to realize there's so much potential in us. The possibilities are endless, and we just have to get out of our own way.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what you were talking about in the respect of how people always tend to look at you and go, well, you're not perfect, or so on and so forth. And when people say that to me, and I just ask, so what is perfection? And who is perfect that I should be comparing myself to?
Yeah.
And then I just go, well, I am perfectly me at this moment. I will not be the same person in the next moment. But right now, I am perfectly me, and I am comfortable with me. Or as I used to tell an old girlfriend, I look at myself in the mirror every day. And if I like what I see, I go about smiling. If I don't like what I see, then I change it. But I change it for me, not for everybody else.
Well, I'm going to make you a suggestion.
Go for it.
That you look in the mirror and you say, I love you.
Yeah.
Because you are not looking at flesh and blood. You're looking at the spirit behind your eyes.
That's what I meant, yes.
And so that part of you is perfect continually all the time. It's the outside of you that gets caught up in the dramas and then dragged into the vortexes, if you will, that causes you to think otherwise.
Yep.
You're always in that state of perfection because you're always one with God. You're always part of the source. And we're elevating that way all the time. You're like, when you get to the point where you're 50% in and 50% out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you get to the place where you're 75% part of source, and it's getting better and better,
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to 80%, and so on and so on. And that's how you elevate, and get into different levels of understanding and different levels of spirituality, if you will, of energy, of the vibration that you're attracting. Mm-hmm. Because whatever you're focusing on, you will attract. You've heard that.
Yes.
But you have to realize what energy is behind that focus.
That is very true.
That's the energy that you're attracting. It's not that people are bad or good. This duality thinking of good, bad is, I have a thing that I use all the time. The yin-yang, of course. I say to people, when you think this is bad and that's good, you're doing everything by degrees. I say to them, just almost imagine that you've got a pendulum in your hand, and you're pushing the pendulum to the left, and you're on the other side, and that's where you store everything that's right and good and perfect. And then you put it over to the right, the other side, and that's where you store everything that's bad and wrong and not good to you. That's your perspective. At what point, what percentage does anything become good or bad? Where on that scale can you slide it? And people don't know quite what I mean, but I'm thinking, it's if you're 1 degree off the freezing point, water won't freeze, and one or so degree off the boiling point, and water won't boil.
Mm-hmm.
So, where is the right and the wrong? I say to you, can you have a front without a back? Is your front better than your back? And can you have one without the other? It's supporting you. You can't have one with the other, out the other. And I used to be only that minded that everything had to be good, perfect, and positive, and all the rest of it. And I said, you can't have an up without a down. You can't. And you can't have an in without an out. So this duality thinking has to go. You've got, and I've been through all of this with I have 2 groups that come in every week that I teach. And it's about allowing those do's and don'ts and rights and wrongs go. That's a part of another dimension.
Yeah, I one of my favorite people to quote is actually Albert Einstein, and he, according to what I've read, he had this discussion, if you will, with his teacher when he was still in grade school, and he was arguing with the teacher about good and evil and so on and so forth, and he goes, no, there is no good and evil. There is good, and then there is an absence of good, which is what we call evil.
That's right.
Just like there's hot and cold. There is either heat or there isn't heat.
Yep.
And the way I put it is, we measure heat. We cannot measure cold. We say it's cold because that's how we sense it. But if you look at it from even a scientific point of view, 0 on the Kelvin scale is where there is no atomic movement. So you can't measure beyond that. It's either it's moving or it's not moving. If you have heat, there is atomic movement. If there is no heat, there is no atomic movement. So it's either heat or no heat. There's good or there's no good.
You look on the thermometer and you'll find no marking that says one's cold and one's hot.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
There's an awful lot of ways to look at this.
Yeah.
And
anyway,
it really releases you from an awful lot of burden when you start to think with the mind of God. The mind of God does not know bad, good. It just knows that you're blocking love.
Yeah.
And you're blocking the light that He would give you. Spirit tells me I withhold no good thing from you. Nothing. It's you that does that.
Indeed. I want to send you something later in the email, but I think you'll enjoy that. But anyway, let's continue on with your life and your transition.
Well, I think the man I married had a lot to do with my transition. And there's a defining factor in your life. I think people are always wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I moving the right place? Am I going here? They're worried about, am I going to take the right job, or I'm going to move to the right city? There is no right, wrong there. It's just going to be a different effect or a different cause, or from what you choose, you're going to have a different effect. You're going to have a lesson no matter what, which one you choose. So my defining factor, my parents sold our building that we lived in, which was a garage. I lived in a garage. I must tell you about that because my father built this garage in the low part of the earth, in the low part of town, where a lot of the water came in. And we lived in the back of this service station garage my father built. And all the water came in every spring, and we'd be sloshing around in our kitchen, which was a combination kitchen bedroom. That's all we had. And my little brother had just been born. He's in his bassinet in the middle of the table, and we're sloshing around rubber boots in our what we called our home. That's what I lived in, so I knew poverty. And that's because my parents didn't know they had a choice. None of us knew we had a choice then to live any other way. And so anyway, they sold that eventually. And my father was a really great worker, and in this garage, he fixed cars and painted them and all the rest of it. So we had a job out in Vancouver. So we bought a car, sold our place, paid off our debts, packed up our car, and went out to Vancouver. But no one would take little kids, because by that time my brother was about 3, maybe 2. I don't know how old he was. Wasn't very old. And no one would take little kids. And it was in the 40s. The early 50s. So the building boom hasn't really caught on that big yet from after the war.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of places to live. They wouldn't take little kids. So here we are in a hotel room. In that day, the hotel room cost $7.50 a day or night.
Yeah.
But even then, everything's relative. We didn't have a lot of money, so we had this argument in the room. What were we going to do? Were we going to stay in Vancouver, or are we going to go back to Ontario? And my mother and I were the only ones that had the deciding vote, so we decided we wanted to go back. So we drove all the way back to Ontario, and we came to where I live now, which is Belleville, Ontario, Canada. And that's where I met my husband. That was a defining factor, that choice. And I met him when I was 16. He was 6 years older than me. And when I was 18, we married. But he pretty well ruled the roost even before we were married. He had lived a very hard life himself, and he was determined that he was going to have something. And he was saving like crazy. He saved all his money. He never spent it on anything, hardly. And anyway, we lived in a 4-room apartment, actually. Yeah, 4 rooms we had. It was very cold in the winter and very hot in the summer, just so we could save enough money to buy our house outright. And in 10 years, we had enough money to buy our house, our first house. And we moved in there. And when we had a daughter, and by that time we had a son. And when my son was born, that was when I got into fundamental religion. And, that became my life. My life was, my husband called the shots pretty well. He likes to say he gave me a voice, but I would say something and I would say what I would like, but then in the end he made the final decision, whatever that is. So, and that was okay. I gave willingly my power over to him because I didn't have any self-confidence. I wasn't confident in my choices, or I wasn't confident in what I could do in life. I really didn't think I didn't think I had any abilities. And my husband was the one that showed me the abilities I did have. He knew that I was artistic, and so he said, why don't you try for this job of window dressing? So I became a window dresser, and I became quite good at it for a while. And I freelanced and made what I made in a week in one day. So, and then he had a music store, so he said, why don't you take this guitar home in a book and maybe one of the teachers here will teach you how to play guitar. Well, I said, okay, I'd like that. And so in 4 months I had my first student. And that was in the day when it was really, really popular. And I had one-on-one students, but they become too many for me to handle. So I had group students, which I would make, many times more in money-wise. But this is how I became self-sufficient money-wise, and I had my own money. So I really didn't take a wage as such, or that I can remember as long as I can remember from the early 50s. And I learned to be an entrepreneur. But it was all about, because of being poverty, to try to make money. And that became my main focus, make money. And it got me into a lot of weird places. Maybe another time I'll tell you one of them that's kind of embarrassing for me. But anyway.
Yeah, well, you have time.
Well,
you know you're only going to be back on the show anyway, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, we're going to be a team, aren't we?
Yeah.
It will save somebody else maybe the same embarrassing thing, because if you're looking outside of yourself to make money, a lot of these pyramid schemes dragged me into. I mean, I was into every multi-level marketing you can imagine, and none of them worked for me. But anyway, I learned. My daughter, when she got out of high school, got her first job in a florist shop, and I was standing there one day looking at her doing flowers, and I said to myself, I can do that. So I started to experiment with dried flowers and things, and to make a long story short, I got a really great business going, and I did weddings and all the rest of it. I had 150 weddings a year. I had 2 employees, and I worked out of my house. So it happened step by step. And I have to tell you, it starts in your heart. Your guidance starts in your heart. I wanted to do this, I didn't know how to do it, and Spirit showed me. I didn't know enough to ask outright and to be directed outright then, because I didn't know that was what I was doing, but in essence, that's what was happening. I didn't learn that until recently, until my husband was dying, but it didn't mean that Spirit wasn't leading me all along, and that's what's happened with a lot of the listeners probably. They don't realize that they're being led. And anyway, I had my florist shop for about 15 years, and I got burnt out. And then I went into holistic healing. So I've worn many, many hats. It's only because I dared to do. And here I am, a great grandma, and I'm still going. This book and everything, traveling all over the place. I just came back from China and Vancouver and Thunder Bay, and I was all over the place. You can't stop me. I'm like the Energizer Bunny.
There you go.
Yeah. They don't realize what they did with that ad. That's funny.
Definitely. Yeah. Just don't bang the drum, okay?
Okay. Good.
There's 2 things that you had talked about, and of course you got me doing that resonant smile again.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear you to expound on them, and I'll tell you one at a time, and I'll tell you in the order that I wrote them down. Okay. You gave your will and your voice willingly, and people don't seem to understand that it is your decision about your life, about what you're going to do, and you can either take the responsibility and do it on your own. I'm going to use that tongue-in-cheek because I know how you're going to explain that one. But you can do it on your own, or you can give your will to somebody else and go, yes, go ahead. You take control of my life. Yep. And most people don't understand the differences between the two.
We've always got a choice, but you probably didn't know it. I didn't know I had a choice. I just know that there is only 2 emotions, love and fear, and I did that out of fear. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't have any faith that I could do it. I saw he was the strong person. In the end, I was the one that became strong. But I had that ability all along. I just didn't know it. People do not realize that the power is within them, and as long as they give that power to somebody else, they never realize it for themselves. A lot of lessons to be learned in giving your energy to another person. And I know there's a lot of women who do that and they do it because they're afraid. Yeah. They're afraid they can't manage on their own, because from my generation, your main goal was to get out of school, find a man, get married, settle down, have children, and that was your life. And boy, that's been anything but my life.
Yeah.
This is a different era now. You have to become strong. You have to know about your finances and taking care of yourself in this third dimensional world if you're going to survive. And you can survive, but you'll survive scared to death. Or you can survive in bliss, knowing that you're protected, guided, and guarded at all times by a higher source. That's become my life now.
We'll talk more about that on another show. No, because I know you and I can have a great time just talking about that one subject.
Well, we take the reins from our children by bailing them out all the time. There's another subject for us.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, we have a lot of subjects we're going to talk about, so just in case you listeners haven't figured it out, Pat and I are definitely going to do a lot of shows together. The last thing, just as we close out the show, because we are coming up to the top of the hour here, so the last thing, we can end this on a very positive note, and you have about, I'd say about 5 minutes. So here's the thought that's in mind as a positive closing for the show. Doing what you enjoy. There's something that I read not too awfully long ago about just do what you enjoy doing, even if you think that you're the only one who enjoys it, because trust me, out of the 7 billion people in the world, you're going to find there are several thousand people out there that are looking to do the same thing that you have an interest in. You're not alone.
That's right.
So, you were talking about doing the music, about doing the art and whatnot. Can you expound on that one in the next, say, 4 minutes?
Oh boy, you've been given a dream, and it's in your heart of hearts. And the only thing that stops you from your dream is fear, and a lot of excuses. And the excuses are your fear. I can't do that because I've got responsibilities. I can't do that because I haven't got enough money. And Spirit says to you, you can do whatever you want to do. This was not put in your heart by accident. It was put there by me. Spirit says, it's my idea. So I am going to make it happen if you will let your fear go. What if you had no fear attached? What if I looked after the money? What if I looked after your responsibilities and the time factor and all the rest of it? Would you be willing to let your fear go to have your dream come true? And if you can say yes to that, then you'll listen and watch, and you will be led one step by step. But one word of warning, don't change your mind. Don't change your mind. Once you put your hand to the plow, go forward, and you'll be shown, because that was not your idea. It was the Spirit's idea that you have. That dream didn't come from you. It came from your source.
Yeah. You know where I'm coming from with that one.
Yeah?
I'm going to put it in a way that it was taught, where I shouldn't say taught. It was, but then again, maybe it can, screw the idea of just trying to identify what it is. It was a thought that was conveyed to me when I was in my mid-20s. I knew a guy who was a millionaire, and he always used to tell me, he says, there's nothing between you and what you want besides air and opportunity.
That's right. Exactly.
That's the most positive way I've ever heard that really said. In other words, he eliminated the fear. He said, hey, just take the positive side. You want it, go for it.
I have one last thing. Let your dream be more powerful than the fear that would stop you.
Exactly. Pat, it was definitely wonderful having you here as a show, and we will be together again soon. Yep. Even if we just do the video shorts for, who knows, maybe starting next week. Anyhow, thank you again for being here. Thank you for your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge, and all this that you have shared with us.
Thank you for asking me. It was wonderful. It's really been fun.
Oh, yeah, and we've got more fun to come.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone, for being here with us, and please stay tuned, because she will be back. Take care. Be well.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us here on Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Please make a note to join us again on our next broadcast. For more information, visit our website at www.ytyrradio.tk. That's www.ytyrradio.tk. Our theme music is Soul Controlled by B.O. Crew under a Creative Commons License 3.0. See our website for more information.